of the video, just list through the names, etc. Some of them are going a bit weird and dropped down, which I wish didn't happen. But anyway, that is how good is live recordings. So League of Inches, the top 5 Supercoach players per position. The first one, we're going to start at the big dogs. We're going to start at fullback and then work our way obviously up all the way and finish at a hooker, which we seem to love to do here at League of Inches, and play on that all you want. But anyway, we're approaching Vegas. Let's not mention that H word too much. So number 1, I think, is Mr. Obvious, Kalen Ponga. There's not much to say here. What I'll do first, I'll run through the 5 I've got, and then I'll throw to Jesse to add his comments for the top 5, and we'll have a bit more of a chat about that. So number 1, Kalen Ponga. Number 2, a lot of people will probably be scratching their heads and go, oh, that's a bit interesting. Tom Trbojevic. I think on his day, the scores he can produce is just ridiculous, and that's, I think, you got to plan around that when you're obviously playing Supercoach. You're hoping for the best case scenario every time with your player. So I think Tom Trbojevic is one of those guys that if you can make work in your team, it's obviously a big word at the moment, make work. Try and get him in. Number 3, I think Scott Drinkwater, coming off the year that he had last year. Cowboys have a really good draw early on, so it's not like someone I feel like you can get stuck with. You can probably get some points. He can probably, I don't know if he'll make money, but he definitely won't lose money or lose much. So he'll definitely allow you to play around in that spot as well. Number 4, Ryan Pappenhausen. I've seen enough from him on the weekend to say he's getting his confidence back. He's looking really, really fit as well, and that has me really excited because before the trials, he wouldn't have featured in my top 5. I was still quite cautious, but that try he scored, that pace he was able to produce, I'm starting to become all on the Ryan Pappenhausen training, especially at that price. That's the cheapest you'll get him all year, in my opinion. And number 5, again, it's sort of based off what I've seen on the weekend, Reece Walsh. The worry for him, and this Jesse's been big on this, there's times where he'll sit there with 10 points after half a game. And then again, like on the weekend, all of a sudden he's on 111. So he's already cracked the 100 mark in his first game. And it was pretty special to watch. I know it was just a trial and it wasn't against a full-strength Cowboys side, but he was still producing some skillful stuff. And it was when actually Adam Reynolds went off. So it was like he had to step up in a way and become that main guy on the field. And he did that. So I was really impressed with that. So I feel like he's moved up a couple of spots for my rankings and around that number 5 mark. Jesse, your initial opinions.
Obviously, you know my thoughts on Kalen Ponga. I think they're the same as everyone's thoughts on Kalen Ponga. The guy's unbelievable when he's on, and I reckon obviously he gets better. We can go on about it every single episode. I think we do almost. We kind of touch on just how much we expect him to do this year. And I think he's taking that pressure well. I think he's just going to come out, and I'm very keen to see how he comes out with this team list that he's named at fullback. I'm super keen to see how he plays. So, I think he just goes new levels, and I'm super keen for that, and a valid first pick, I reckon. Tommy Turbo. I was very happy you picked Tommy Turbo second because I did too. I love him. You know, there's no one better than Tommy Turbo on his day. And obviously, you know, you have the arguments about his fitness. He might not play a handful of games or whatever it's going to do. And it's like, okay, you understand the risk. But yeah, it's just worth it, man. It's just worth it. You don't want to not have him when he's flying. That's the thing. So my team at the moment consists of both Ponga and Turbo. And I don't think I'm going to go against doing that. The only person that might tempt me is in your number 4 spot with Pappy. So, I'm super keen on Turbo. And I think I made the point in the last episode too, where if he gets injured, I'll just trade him. I don't care if I lose coin out of it, or, you know, if he dies on 10 points and that's the end of his run, then that's the end of his run. But I've had him, and I'd rather run the risk and just have him to be sure. So that's kind of the point with him.
That's the scary thing for mine from a non-turbo owner at the moment. I've gone on the Pappy bandwagon, and it saved me a little bit of coin, which has helped me play around elsewhere. But my worry is if I don't start with him and he plays the way I know he can play, and as I said, that's what we try and think of when we're picking Supercoach, I feel like he's going to quickly price himself out of anything. Like I'll have to change my team way too drastically to get him in, and that's the scary thing at the moment. That's the thing I'm trying to juggle. And the hard thing is I've gone pretty hard when it comes to, like, obviously halfbacks. I've spent a lot of money there. I didn't have a double gun 5'8", but I did spend a little bit in 5'8" when it came to even my second player when there is obviously those mid 200 players, but I went up to that 400 mark. So that was spending a little bit more than I probably wanted to, but it is definitely a worry not having Turbo and knowing what he can produce early on.
Yeah, it's a risky play, obviously, having him. I think having him is riskier than not having him, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Um, but if you if you afford to take that risk, it can really, really shoot you right up, depending on how he plays, man. Like, we obviously saw what he did a couple years ago. Guy's a freak. There's a good chance that if he stays fit, he scores more than Ponga does. That's half my point with him. So if he doesn't, then that's the end of Turbo, and you just have to do it every single year. You just get rid of him when he's injured. But yeah, I don't know. I
If
can't. Every time I put him in and then I take him out to afford someone else, I just think, if Turbo goes hard and he gets those points, then am I going to make that difference in these players that I'm getting outside of him? Obviously, running that risk and spending the extra coin. But at the moment, yeah, I can justify it. So we'll see what happens
bold
closer to the
prediction
day.
from you, who
Yeah.
do you reckon will finish the year with the most points? So Kalen Ponga or Tom Trebojevic, both have obviously injury history as well. Both have come off years where they haven't played all the games, but they've also had years where they've played tremendous. I mean, obviously one Dally M's, etc. If you had to predict right now, who do you reckon scores the most Supercoach points in 2024?
I would have to say Ponga.
Yeah.
Personally. I think obviously they're both going to be gone for Origin too, providing they're both fit. So they lose the same amount of games. But I just back Ponga's ability to sort of be that man where obviously Turbo does all the work, but he's got a bit more around him too. So, and then plus Ponga kicks, you know what I mean? And if they're flying, there's just extra points out of nowhere. So it could be quite even, but I still feel like regardless of Turbo's fitness, you're probably going to sit out a few games for some sort of niggle here or there, where Ponga not necessarily has those niggly issues. It was mainly around the concussion stuff, which is big stints at a time where Turbo might sporadically sit out for bits and pieces. But yeah, I would still say Ponga scores more. But
Yeah.
there's a chance that Turbo might average more in the minutes he does play. Just depends on if he stays fit for the year. That's kind of the big thing about him. So um, enough on Tommy. Could talk about him all day. Love him. Scott Drinkwater. I like it.
Another one of your
I
men.
respect that. Yeah. I'm big on Scotty Drinkwater. I think he's going to have a great year. The Cowboys' run's good. Everything benefits him as far as that goes. Obviously, you just have to see how the Cowboys go because he has the ability to do it on his own pretty much. He kind of did that last year. So, yeah, I would definitely have Scott Drinkwater over Reece Walsh personally. You saw what he was on at halftime. It was abysmal, and then he just explodes. So
Yeah.
I don't feel like Scott Drinkwater's got that sort of volatility. I think he'll just consistently pot up and up and up, and then everything runs through him at the end of the day for attack anyway. Between him and even Holmes too, I don't really see him doing as much as Drinkwater does when it comes to sparking actual attack. So really good signs for a fullback anyway. So Scott Drinkwater's a great pick, um, and I don't hate his price either. It's a lot to spend if you're doing the double Kalen thing, but um, between Turbo and Drinkwater, I probably go for the Turbo ceiling, but Drinkwater will obviously play like every game, probably no questions between them. So um, Ryan Pappenhausen, he really got me intrigued after that trial game. Just seeing that speed, just that burst speed too. Because no one doubts his ability. You know what I mean? Like we don't have to sit there in trials and question how good Pappenhausen is. That's pretty clear. He's probably one of the best fullbacks in the game. But just seeing if he was explosive or as explosive as he was prior, and I think he kind of is, to be fair. Um, the way that he chased that ball over through the line to get to that first try, that was quick, man. That was very quick off the mark. So, um, and that was the first trial game. I think it was probably about 20 minutes in, or 40 minutes into it. It was kind of at the end. So, yeah, it was very impressive considering. So, I'm pretty keen on Pappy. If I do need to go down a couple 100K off Tom Turbo, I'm not all opposed to getting Pappenhausen in because he does look good. Um, And yeah, you're probably right about his cheapest price. Maybe the starting run doesn't help, to be
Yeah.
fair, as far as keeping his prices where it is. Um,
I'm hoping he gets the goal kicking back as well. I think they're
yeah,
just hesitant to give him that right now, but
Yeah.
I've seen already in some highlights from the Storm's social media team, he has been practicing a lot of goal kicking. So he's obviously confident enough to be doing that. I just feel like
Mm.
in game mode at the moment, they don't need to push him for that. So I'm hoping by round one, he gets the goal kicking duties back.
Yeah, I think there's probably a good chance for it. They just don't want his leg to come off in the trials. So
Yeah.
it's probably a good thing that they're getting, letting him sit that one out for a minute. But because he does kick pretty well. But it
Yeah.
opens just a whole new avenue for points on him. And that's where you look at his 650 price and you think, this is a joke. This is an absolute bargain. So
Yeah.
yeah, I am pretty keen on Pappy too. It's just obviously, starting off not too hot with the fixtures, but I think if you just get him in and you just accept that he might have a quiet game against the Panthers and probably kick off in round two, then you just take it for what it is. Nothing wrong with that, really. And you know what, man? I've been thinking too about this Panthers Storm game. I reckon Melbourne win. I reckon
Yeah, I think
Melbourne
there's
win
a
like
valid argument there.
pretty well. Thinking about they don't
Oh,
lose round one. Honestly, I think so because Panthers are going to be coming off that Wigan game. Melbourne don't lose round one. It's Bellamy's last year, most likely. He doesn't want to lose the last year of his unbeaten run of round
oof.
oneers. You know what I mean? Like they're going to want to win that game too. So the more I think, and I've been thinking, oh, I might not want to start with. like, I kind of do want to start with Munster too. That's another thing. But the argument's kind of leaning to me, going, you know what? There's a good chance that they do something in round one here. They've got every possibility to do it. So I don't even think it's bad for round one. So it just depends,
Yeah, I don't
obviously.
mind that.
But yeah. And then Reece Walsh, Mr. Mr. Hot and Cold, but just hot for 5 minutes. It's all it takes with him. Um, Number five, yeah. Look, I can't doubt the guy's ability. Like he obviously averaged basically 80 points last year. I just still can't do it personally. Like he's definitely, I reckon he's probably for the list that you've got number five. You know, can't knock it. And after that trial, you see what he can do. But without that little run at the end there as well, you also saw what he could do. It doesn't look like a lot. So he loves an error. Um, Considering some honourable mentions that have missed out on this, Latrell, that's a big one. Like I would personally put in Latrell over Walsh just because I do like Latrell more. He does kick. Um, he will probably average more than he has last year, but I still reckon he probably pushes Walsh out as well as far as that average
Yeah.
goes. So it's that's probably the only take that I would think for a fifth spot. It's a pretty big exclusion um for Walsh there, but yeah,
I'm a little
the
bit
other four,
worried about Latrell.
you're worried for his points or you're worried that
Uh,
he's going to do good?
yeah. No, I'm worried about his Supercoach points. I'm worried about, especially early on with these injuries at the moment. I think it puts a whole lot of pressure on him and Cody Walker. And we've seen in the past they probably don't play their best footy when when they have pressure and they're expected to do literally everything for the footy side. No disrespect, they both like to sort of float in and out of games and pick their times. And I think now with the injuries to South Sydney, it forces them to be much more on the ball, which in theory, for a super coach point of view, you're probably thinking that should add up to points. But then I'm thinking about it, and I know that in the past, Latrell's not the fittest fullback. He'll admit that himself. And I don't know if him being so much on the ball is actually a good thing because it could
Mm,
tend to some lazy errors, some fatigued errors. Um, I'm all for Latrell. Trust me, I am a huge Latrell Mitchell fan. I love watching him play. I think on his day, he's arguably in the top three players in the game on his day. I'm just worried with the especially the key personnel that now South will be missing, especially for the first fair period of time, especially now. It's just got me slightly concerned. That's why I didn't have him in number five. But again, I can't knock people who do go for him because, as you said, there is goal kicking. South will score enough tries to make goal kicking um, a worthy relative. We have spoken off air about some other players that we will speak about tonight. People are talking about goal kicking, and I'm just sitting there going, "Why are you worried about that much? Because the teams won't score that many tries to
yeah.
make it really count towards anything." But I think South Sydney are a team, even though they've got some backline out. We've seen them before. They're still able to score some tries and stuff. So valid argument. I can understand if people have him there, and in like a draft point of view, if they're picking him as the fifth choice fullback, if that's who they're stuck with, they got him or Reece Walsh. Can totally understand going for Latrell Mitchell.
Yeah, from a draft perspective, I suppose you look at the rankings pretty different.
Yeah.
Draft perspective, there's a good chance you could probably get Pappenhausen a little bit later, where I still expect Walsh to probably go in the top 6, realistically, 7 picks or so. And there's a good chance that he's drafted before Latrell is as well. Mainly out of draft position and average from last season. I think that's obviously going to sway a lot of drafters, but it's a lot of preference too. At the end of the day, you can put for last season, you could put Gutho in that list as well for most consistent out of all of them, and he killed it more than some of the others did in general. So yeah, I think it's just one of those preferential kind of things. But I've had Walsh last year. I got him in for just a cash rise, to be honest. I had no intention of holding on to him for any substantial amount of time, even when he was playing good, because I knew he's going to have that game that's going to be shit, absolutely shit, and it's going to put a halt to his price rise. So I basically just ran off that until I thought I'd capitalize from him and got a better fullback straight away. So
I think Reece
not
Walsh
knocking
is
him
one
though,
of those
man.
big guys
Yeah,
this year
he's
where
a
you really look at the run and you time it. You have to time it perfectly when you're playing him. Like, not to say he's a flat track bull at all, but he definitely scores very, very, very well against some of those um, lesser teams than he does against. Like, he still can produce against quality teams. He's one of the best players in the game, so he definitely can. But I definitely keep an eye on the draw and just see when he has some good games backed up, paired up
yeah,
together, and go from that for him.
yeah. You're just paying up too premium, I think, at the moment
Yeah,
for hot
especially got
two
a
two good
hard draw
names
to start with.
potentially.
So
Yeah, it's not the nicest, and quality will kind of outshine that, and you can justify the price tag on a few of the others. But I just personally, I just can't justify it for Walsh in general. But yeah, man, pretty solid top 5 for fullbacks.
yeah,
We got some talent to work
a
with.
couple of you already mentioned one honourable mention. I'll just mention two others quickly. Clint Gutherson, you've already sort of mentioned, had a really consistent year last year, surprisingly consistent Supercoach year. He's up
Mm,
there as the 5th ranked at the moment, so couldn't knock anyone if they had an argument there to have him around that 5th mark as well, just from how consistent he was. The only question mark is Dill Brown is back and looks to be having a career best year if everything is to go by. So that would probably play into Clint Gutherson's points a little bit. So just be wary of that one. A final one I want to quickly talk about is James Tedesco, who at different times for the off-season Supercoach world, we have been pretty high on. He did work before Pappenhausen has sort of proven himself. So I feel like because that saves me a little bit more coin, Pappenhausen just straight away leaps him. But I'll say this about Tedesco. He's copped a bit of criticism from the weekend's performance. He did make a few errors. But the one thing about James Tedesco is he's a quality player. I don't care what his age is. I don't care what his year was like last year. He's quality. And the thing with these quality players that will go down once he retires, whether it's next year, whether it's 3 years away, whenever it is, we'll remember him as one of the best fullbacks to play the game, in my honest opinion. But
yep.
Don't knock a champion. He will bounce back from that. The thing is, on the weekend, it was a trial game. It was very hot. It was not horrible conditions brain-wise or anything, but it was just horrible. It was like sweaty. The ball was slippery. And it was areas that he'll fix up. He'll go back to training and he'll work on that. It wasn't like he was not getting involved. He was very involved. And that in a trial from that
Mm.
quality of player, that actually entices me a bit more to continue to look at James Tedesco. I've already had him in my team once, traded him out, but that's not to say I won't go back there. I'll be keeping a close eye on Tedesco to start the year. And if the time's ever right, the price is right, etc., I'm not saying no to Tedesco. I'm not ruling him out.
Yeah, I think there's a pretty good shout that at some point I have Tedesco in my team.
Yeah.
It'll just be off the back of probably a big game that I don't have him for, with a pretty enticing fixture run after that. And you might get the feeling that the Roosters could be on as well. Like they might start to get a bit of momentum. The wheels might be turning, and you're thinking, okay, there's a good shout that for the next stretch of God knows how many games that they could all just be they could be on firing. So I don't know who I'll have potentially. Obviously, I can't see into the future. I would have won if I could.
Damn it.
So yeah, I know. If only, Jesus, it can't be that hard. But yeah, I don't know who I'll have at the time, and I don't know who I'll be willing to trade out at the time if it's that good of an option for me. But yeah, he's one of those players that you just tend to at some point have for whatever reason. So usually trying to make a run out of him. But yeah, and I suppose at the same time you could also mention Dylan Edwards. He started off so hot last year, but just plateaus at 70. So you want the ceiling. But yeah, the picks that you've chosen are probably the most high potential, I would say.
I'll give myself a massive tick for that position. Let's move on.